Hello and welcome to the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast with me, your host, Tim Stillman, stepping up the third choice. That's right, because Elliot is having the time of his life in Singapore, of course, watching Arsenal, following Arsenal and having a great time out there, not jealous at all. Phil Costa was going to present this episode, but he's in his sick bed at the moment, so we wish Phil all the best. And that being the case, your third choice, your plan C, your Ollie Watkins stepping up here to present this episode, Tim Stillman. However, we do actually have some football to talk about because that's right. Arsenal played a game in Singapore on Wednesday lunchtime, I think. It was Wednesday lunchtime. Kids, school holidays, all of that just fried my brain in terms of like what day it actually is. And to that end, apologies if at my end you do hear some children at some point because mine is in the house and next doors are in the house because it's school holidays. So you may hear laughing, screaming, all of the above at some point during the episode. But here to talk with me about the AC Milan game and a little bit of transfer stuff too, we've got Clive Palmer. Clive, how are you?
Hello. I had a brief chat with Elliot this morning and I can confirm he's having the time of his life. Whenever I go away with Elliot and Andrew, we end up walking miles, right, until I need a hip replacement. Oh, but no, when I'm not there, yes, they're by the pool, lying down, relaxing. Do you know what I mean? Are they taking a piss? I mean, they really are. And so hope this podcast, mate, it needs to go well.
Yeah, definitely. I have a friend out there as well who I go to away games with, and he was kind of messaging us during the game, and he said he nearly didn't stay for the penalties at the end because essentially it was so hot in the stadium. He was like, it looks like he's like, all I've done is sit here and it looks like I've jumped in the pool. And so he was a bit like, I'm questioning whether, because the roof was closed and I think he was at the top of the stadium and he was just like, it was literally like sitting in a greenhouse. So, good workout for the players, I'm sure. They do go away for warm weather stuff, don't they? So, it probably does help. But we are going to talk about the AC Milan game, Clive, presently. However, obviously, it's July. Things are really picking up on the transfer stuff, I think, across the league, and we're starting to see some dominoes. And I think we're about to see the next round of dominoes, really, because there was a story. I mean, there were stories over the weekend. Alexander Isak didn't play for Newcastle against Celtic, and Eddie Howe didn't really cover that up, said his brain wasn't in it. And then Newcastle briefed that Isak was not going to Singapore because of a slight thigh problem. I think if you've got a slight thigh problem, you probably fly out to where your club doctors are. So that wasn't a very good excuse. And I think we were all waiting for a few minutes later stories to drop about Isak wanting to leave Newcastle. Before we take the Arsenal angle of that, Clive, because I think there is an Arsenal angle, both about, our own interest in the player in the past and, him potentially maybe strengthening a serious rival. But what do you make of this story? Because to me, I cannot get my head around why Isak is doing this now, the week where the two clubs who would fall over each other to buy him have bought strikers. There was the story that Liverpool were kind of interested, and then they seemed to pivot very quickly to Ekitike, which made most of us think, that there was just no chance of getting Isak, but now there seems to be some real kind of agitation there behind the scenes. Before we go on to the Arsenal angle, what do you make of the story overall?
There's a few threads to pull on here. I think if you're Isak and you don't want to sign a new contract, or maybe you do, but you want to sign it on your terms, right? So he wants to go into a 300 club, doesn't he, into that level of money. If you're going to put me out there as a £150 million player, then you have to pay me appropriately. And that's what I thought this was all about initially. I thought he's trying to get a better contract with a similar length time and probably an exit in next summer to one of the clubs, because everyone seems to have bought their strikers. You would include Chelsea in that. They bought João Pedro and Leon Delap as well. Nicholas Jackson may end up at Manchester United, for all we know, as we record. So he can move on there. So Chelsea look like they're in good shape. Obviously, Arsenal are finally about to buy a striker for the first time since Frank Stapleton. Right? So that's what it feels like. And so now we're moving forward with that. And so you're looking around. City have got their man, obviously. And so you're looking around thinking, okay, has your market just disappeared? But Liverpool are interested because Liverpool have potential sales. And because they're Liverpool, they always seem to get the top dollar. So they could sell Harvey Elliott for 40 million, right, even though he had about 3 Premier League starts last year. And he's done well in the under-21s and won that. So he's been a shop window this summer. Diaz could go to Bayern Munich for like 75 million euros, something like that. A good number for a 28-year-old. And then Darwin Núñez, what if Saudi come in and say, we're going to pay you 50, 60 million for him? Suddenly, the 120-ish, 130, it's achievable, isn't it? If you want to do it, it's achievable. Now, you could say they've just bought a centre-forward, so why would they buy another centre-forward? Is Ekitike more flexible to play in the wide areas? Right? In his first year, as he develops his body, he could do. So you could see Liverpool get funds. You could see Arsenal get funds if they really wanted to, particularly by moving left-handed side players away. But I actually like the approach what Arsenal have done to go for the centre-forward they have. If they bring in the one extra player that we all sort of want, you can see, well, actually, rather than have one big player to have to play a lot of games to justify the cost, you get a centre-forward and an attacking mid-player that can play in wide areas, can offer you much more flexibility. We know the name. Do I need to mention it? We know the name that we all like. That suits me. But there is a little bit of me thinking, that bloke Isak really is on his top game. He really is the one. I was talking to somebody, a friend of both of ours online today, saying, this is a bit infuriating, isn't it? And I said to her, I'm about to talk to Tim now, and I'm going to come up with a tactical reason why Isak wouldn't work for Arsenal. But I'm struggling. I'm struggling.
He's a croc. He'll be injured.
That's one of the reasons. That's one of them. He'd be injured. As soon as he goes into our pressing schemes, he'd probably break down. We wouldn't see him for 6 months. I'm trying to justify it, but we'd all like the man, wouldn't we? We'd all like the man. But we are who we are, right? So let's see what happens. I'm still happy with what we've done so far and what we could potentially do.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people probably rest with Arsenal's transfer window full stop at the moment, where I think the consensus, if I try and separate out the extreme ends of the spectrum, is kind of so far so good, but we'd really like to see maybe that kind of good Trossard sale and then bring in like an Eze or a Rodrigo or something like that to really, put the cherry on the cake, because I think most people's feelings, and I think this is about correct, that we've improved the depth. Last season there was Raheem Sterling. You don't have to do an awful lot to upgrade on that, I don't think. And Gabriel Jesus wasn't there and isn't going to be there. That's an empty body. I think we've done something similar in defence, right, with Mosquera. That's replacing Tomiyasu, an empty body, as it were. So, we've improved the depth. And, with Madueke as well, that's a bit of an unknown. But, like, Madueke is replacing Sterling. Like, he's not going to have to do much to improve on that. But then there's the question, have we really pushed the level there? Which I think is a very fair question. And a lot of people kind of thinking maybe if we say to Trossard, you've been brilliant, what a great signing you've been, off you go kind of thing. And now we'll get an Eze or Rodrigo. That tends to be where people are. But I guess, Clive, do you think, particularly with the way the Gyokeres negotiation dragged out, and I think we should caveat this and say that, like, whatever we're aware of with Isak, it didn't start last week.
Yeah.
Like, these things never do. I'm pretty sure that Berta, that Liverpool, everyone would have known about this for ages, right? Just because it's just come out now doesn't mean that it's only just started now. Where are you perhaps on the idea that maybe Arsenal should, maybe rolled out the big potatoes on the poker table and maybe just like put Gyokeres off to the side and said, actually, we could really get the grade A option that we really want in Isak?
Yeah, it's a tough decision to make, right? Because when you're bringing on left backs in the Champions League quarterfinals at home because you've not got enough wide areas and not enough depth in attack because you've had injuries, then we forget we're trying to fix that problem. We're trying to have a much more rounded squad for the 63 games we're going to play this year, I'm guessing, right? So, and you just can't have those single points any longer. I'm okay with the approach if we get that final Eze player, Tim. I really like what we've done. But we come up with a number of squad solutions, and to fill gaps that were natural and upgrade where possible, and really push us forward stylistically. And in Zubimendi, for example, bringing somebody in prime age to fill a pivotal role in the team, right? So I like what we've done. But when you're watching a team and you become very familiar with the players very, very quickly, it's really terrible, right? It's football, such a transient game now. You get familiar with players, class players. Well, I've seen him before. I'm bored of him. I want somebody else, right? If you don't say it out loud, you say it to yourself, So then that player does something good. Oh, he's a good player. He's back. So we're looking for a bit of a freshness there, and I think there is opportunity to add that extra player. I think it's about how you feel about this. Isak, on his day, we've seen him shake Saliba, shake Gabriel, and shake Van Dijk and stick it on top of Liverpool's net as well. So this guy, when he wants to do it, is the best in the business. It feels like off the pitch he's not the best in the business because he hasn't got himself the right level of contract that allows him the flexibility to own his career. So now he's having to kick off. And so interesting one, mate. See what happens. I have to be comfortable with our work. Right, so there's no doubt Arsenal have spoken to him and decided maybe it can't work for us. We have to accept that. It can't work for us, these level of numbers. Newcastle are not going to be nice with Arsenal, are they? That is the last place they want to sell him to. We all know that. And so we just have to, it's all assumptions here and speculation, so please don't take it as gospel because I don't know. But we just have to be confident in the direction that we're taking. As long as we fully take it. And I'm pleased to see the players that we've got are not just squad solutions, but they add to who we are from an identity point of view. And we really add to our game plan and game model. So if we're going to be this team, then let's be it. And let's with the right level of depth and quality. And let's not get back to Kieran Tierney coming on at left wing against Real Madrid. And the season before, we have the Zach Swansons on our bench. For 3 months towards the end of the season. And that's what we're trying to get away from, really, to move forward, because the expectations are only going up.
Yeah, definitely. And usually, Clive, I kind of, because I'm old and getting bitter and out of touch with
You're still young.
The youth, I usually feel very kind of superior and dismissive of people who worry about other teams' transfers. And, I think there is, particularly on social media, which I'd say definitely the median age is quite a bit younger than me. And sometimes I have to remember that when I see some of the takes.
Yeah.
But, usually I'd just be like, this is like people think of transfers as content and it's new toys and stuff like that. And, it's envy and it's, they've bought this player. However, I think if I can certainly see, even if I can't get transfer anxiety, I just can't. I'm not saying it's wrong to have it because I know how important it is. Man City didn't win loads of league titles because they didn't care about the transfer market. It's because they bought loads of good players. So I know how important it is. Personally, I can't. It might be a generational thing. I can't get to the emotional stage with it, and I kind of feel like that's a problem with me because I should, because it's important. However, I can certainly see why people would be angsty about Liverpool potentially buying Isak, particularly when they've kind of gone for Havertz, and they've got Havertz, they've got Ekitike in the bag there. To your point, I think that they're really future-proofing now in terms of, Mo Salah not being there forever. I think also it's probably too much to say they made mistakes, but I don't think they replaced Mane and Firmino well. And that's why Luis Diaz and Nunez are up for sale, because basically they just didn't quite do it. And obviously there is the much more tragic context around Diogo Jota as well, which is, glib as it is to say, giving them another forward to replace. However, and also I think one of the things we don't do as fans as well is, again, this really sounds like copium, but the reason Liverpool have got some of the room to do this is because they basically didn't do very much last summer. So sometimes those quiet transfer windows help you in future transfer windows. However, to be fair, Arsenal had a couple of those themselves in the kind of promise of jam tomorrow. So where are you on the angst levels about potentially Isak going and really strengthening the team that won the league last season?
It could easily happen. And if you look at the top three teams, and they are separating, in my opinion, from the rest of the league. City done 200 million in January. Just bang, done that. Some of them are young, but some of them are very young, high potential players. And they've done a bit more in the summer as well. Liverpool, like us last year, had a pretty quiet window. They just bought Chiesa, I believe, and the goalkeeper came in and went back out on loan. So he's now back in the squad now. And we had a fairly quietish window. I think Marino, Calafiori, that type of window. And obviously Sterling coming in. So we didn't really change our face. Hence, we looked a little bit stale potentially, and people were saying, could we use those funds in a better way? We had sales as well, so we didn't spend a lot. I remember you said this really, really well on a previous pod about there being like a PSR effect, and it was for all of us, not just for Arsenal, and looks as though the top three have said, right, let's go. We're in our 3-year cycle. Let's go and do our work. And so we have to say we have to be happy with ours or not. Liverpool are a good side, but they also have issues in defence, Tim, and they have a massive, massive single point of failure with Virgil van Dijk. Konate's in the last year of his contract and edging potentially out the window. They need a third centre back. They get Mark Gay, it makes a lot of sense. He can play both sides, smart player, particularly in possession. Their fullbacks look really good on paper, but they're quite small. They're not physical. They're not physical at all. They're interested in what they do in those spaces, and that's vulnerabilities that other teams will pick on. So defensively, they've got work to do. Offensively, you got to sit behind the set if they all get all those players in, because once they're going forward, it's going to be a tough team to stop. Look at Man City. Again, they've got their structures in place, added more carriers. They've got a different coaching team in place. I'm interested to see what they do. I think they're going to look at fullbacks in a much more offensive way like Liverpool have done. But they still can't defend a transition. They still give up too many chances. And so you have to be confident and comfortable with what we're doing. The good thing is we're doing something, because the previous podcast we've done, the end of the January window and the summer window, was we didn't quite do enough. And this time I think we're doing something, and it feels like enough. If we potentially buy 7 players, I don't think any of us thought that could have happened. We all like that number, but to see it come to fruition is actually a surprise to me anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I think of a transfer window that could be similar, I think in 2014 we did some good squad build. We got Welbeck, we got Callum Chambers. I think David Ospina came in that summer, so we upgraded the quality of the squad player, but we got Alexis Sanchez as well, yeah. And that was kind of the bottom line. I think we were going to come to this at the end, but since we're loosely on the subject, I did want to pick up on something Mikel Arteta said, maybe I think it was his pre-match press conference about transfers. You said there that Arsenal on course to bring in 6 players already. Now, again, some of that is kind of really he was talking about the tiers, and I'll get your view on that as well, and how in his mind, and this is music to my ears, he sees those as more fluid this coming season. And it really sounds to, I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. It would be ridiculous if they didn't, but I read Declan Rice's interview as well with some of the guys out there in the huddle, and he was talking about, look, last season we weren't able to rotate. We were 70% fit. We can't have that happen again. But one of the things he said as well was Arteta was still saying we're very short on numbers. And I mean, in pure numbers, we are not. In fact, I think we're kind of sailing close to the win, maybe on the 25 squad limit. Obviously, I still think there's players who are going to go. But what did you make, first of all, of that? We're very short. Surely he means quality rather than depth. But also, do you think he was taking Gyokeres and Mosquera into that equation or not? Or what did you make of that comment in particular, and maybe also his comments about there being less defined first, second, and third tiers in the squad now?
Yeah, I like the fact that we now seem to have quality players that can set in for each other. And this week's friendly, I thought, was very instructive for that. I mean, just look at the 2 goalkeepers. You didn't blink, really, did you? I mean, if you close your eyes, you wouldn't have even changed, right? Because they got very similar stylistically what they do on the ball and how they play. So straight away then, we've gone away from the disparities between, say, a Ramsdale and Raya. and obviously Neto last season, right? So we now have a style of goalkeeper that we can play, and I don't think it's a problem for us if something was to happen. I used to worry when David Ray used to go in for a challenge last season. And that's where we were. William Saliba, I mean, watching him play, he's like, oh crikey, can we get him signed up? Seriously. If you get all these signings, we're going to need something to moan about. The next thing is going to be Saliba and Saka getting them signed up. That's going to be the next thing. And so the way he's moving across the pitch in his first friendly is just ridiculous. You just remind yourself of how good he is. When a player's that good, you are so tempted just to play them all the time. But it's just not fair on them. Sometimes what we don't realise is that they're on the team sheet, but they're not in condition to play. And it's quite interesting. You're in Timber, not in condition to play at the moment because he's injured. Look at Ben White. Now, Tim, you watch games like I do. Watching Ben White in this friendly is the Ben White we used to see. That's mechanically back together again, in the best of shape, up and down that line. We found a player again. So we lost him last season from when he went for his operation. That is a new player. So having players on the pitch doesn't mean they're in condition to win. And that word condition is really important because it's clear to me there are a number of players in our squad that may have been playing, but they were not in condition to reach their top level. And that's hard for the players. They get judged by all of us, tens of millions of us that judge them on what they've done on that day. And if they're on the pitch, they're fit to play in our minds, but they're not always fit to play. Watching Declan Rice in the friendly game, watching him stormtroop that pitch. Remember last year we had the foot injury, the toe injury, the first phase of the season, he was being substituted in the first few. We never saw him substituted in games in his first season. Not ever. He went up against Spurs and we drew the game. But now we're talking about a player that literally was playing half injured. We could see that. So football needs to change and we need to change. I still worry about the players, our better players, and by that I mean Saka and Saliba in particular, and how they're so important to how we play. I worry about that still. And I think we need to think about that as we are buying the new players. And I think we've got a couple of forwards going to come in that could really offer that level of character and personality to really make us think, actually, we don't always have to tilt to the right all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Even having less of a dependence on players in game, so they don't have to do so much. Like a Kai Havertz, like a Bukayo Saka. Yeah. I think those two guys in particular take a lot of the pure physical toll. Yeah. Actually, it's not, I mean, the minutes in the legs are significant, but also when you're active for all of those 90 minutes, especially a player like Kai Havertz, who's just involved, who's essentially playing two positions at once. Yeah. I definitely think going easier on a player like him. And I think you're right. I think we saw some really interesting kind of things here. I was listening to the commentary on Arsenal.com and Adrian Clark was on CoCom. Should say Adrian's actually launched his own YouTube channel this summer. And I watched his video about this game. Actually, I really recommend it. I think when Adrian used to do the breakdown on Arsenal.com, which we don't really see anymore, I think we lost one of the best pieces of Arsenal content out there. So I'm really glad to see he's doing his own YouTube channel. I was kind of listening to his commentary and he was talking about like every pre-season, like you find something out. And that's the kind of fun of these games. And we talk about that a lot. Like, what's the next thing? What's the evolution? What's the little trial that we're doing here that we may or may not see, because you can try things and decide that they don't work. But for me, Clive, before we get into the nuts and bolts, I'm just going to ask for an overall view of this game for you as a test for Arsenal. Because I'll tell you what my emotional feeling was about it. It's more related to the spectacle of the game, right? So, yeah. I mean, it was slightly disappointing to see such a low crowd, I think. And I think, some of the promoters for these really have to review ticket pricing, for example. So I said, a friend of mine was there. He paid like the equivalent of about 70 quid to be in the back of the upper tier. So the pricing's really prohibitive. And I think we've really seen that on a lot of these tours and a lot of destinations. I do understand the next game's at a weekend and you've probably got two Premier League teams. So, spectacle-wise, slightly disappointing, maybe the way promoters managed it. I don't know. But I tell you what, Clive, Do you remember when we played AC Milan in the 1995 Super Cup final?
No, I don't. Go on, tell me. It'll come to me.
Well, we played them in the Super because we won the Cup Winners' Cup and they won the European Cup, and we did a two-legged tie. And actually, in the second leg at Highbury, Paul Merson made his comeback, but they beat us 2-0 on aggregate, and it could have been 10. But basically, in the first leg in the San Siro, they scored twice in the first 25 minutes. And they just went, we've got Maldini and Baresi back there. This game could go. You could have 10 legs and you're not scoring. And at that point, AC Milan were just from a different bloody planet. I went to that second leg at Highbury, and it was 0-0, and they were in second gear. They were jogging because they knew their defence could hold us, and they were like, even if you score, we've got Boban up there. He'll probably smack one in from 30 yards. That Milan team, Capello's Milan, is one of the best club teams ever. Obviously, Arrigo Sacchi had them before. And I was a bit sad, Clive, because I thought, I know like it's the beginning of pre-season. I know they had some players out. I thought they were crap. I thought they were absolute crap. But in one respect, it was probably a good warm-up for Arsenal because they sat in their penalty area for the whole game and tried not to lose 3 or 4-0. Basically, that's what they were doing. I don't know how useful preparation that is for their season ahead. For us, it probably was quite useful because, deep blocks, that's what we're going to come up against a lot, and that's what we struggled with last season. But so, from it's a friendly and all of that, but I did feel a bit sad that it was like we're playing AC Milan and they look like they'd get relegated from the Premier League, and that's probably a generational thing as well. But what was your overall impression of the game?
With these pre-season games, I always try to look at what the coaching message is, because they would have had their lessons learned meeting, and this is what we're going to do tactically, and this is what we're going to emphasize. So also you get a chance to see players, and you have to remember it's pre-season. Some of this is non-contact, and people are just not being aggressive in the pressing all the time. They drop into spaces and have a little rest. Do you know what I mean? Then they go again. So it's a little bit patchy on occasions.
And it was hot.
And it was very hot. And you can see people, when they're taking crossfield passes, they were like banging them hard, and you can always tell that players have maybe trained in the day and this is their second bit of load. And you have to remember they don't have quite the touch and feeling they normally would do. You see Ethan bang a pass out about 10 yards over someone's head, and you just see things like that. So you just dismiss that stuff, just dismiss it. But what I did see, Tim, was a little bit more directness in transition. So once the ball turned over, then have a look at people around and see their first movement. Is it to come to the ball or is it to sprint away? And I saw this a few times, people sprinting away. And that pleased me because regardless of the personnel, I think we need to do that more. I think we've become a team that's really, when we win it, we have 3 passes, then we go. The reason for that, we can get into our rest defense, into our attacking shape, which we're comfortable with. In case we lose the ball again, we can get it back again. I'm fine with it, mate. It's got loads and loads of points, but we want to score more goals. We maybe have to be a little bit less, risk averse. And when we see it, go. And you see Arteta was talking about opportunities for Kai to get the ball after in the game. We didn't get it a couple of times. I'm really pleased to see that because we know from seeing in the Emirates where we can see everything, even though we see so many runs that are just missed, just missed. And it's my one critique, really. We got players that no longer running into spaces out to in because they know they're not going to get it. We have to be brave about that first pass out. So I'm pleased to see that. I do think, though, I don't know if you want to go into a bit more detail of the game, but this is something that's in my head, Tim, and I got to get it out because it's in there. I got to get it out. So to see us play the way we played, and it was really, really good. We take things for granted around control, territory, how that happens. It doesn't just happen. You've got to be a good side to get a team back where they don't want to be. They don't want to be there. They're forced to go back there because they can't control the ball. They can't get their +1s. They can't manage those. When we're in a bit of trouble, we've got someone else available. Once they start running around, the first thing you do, we can't get the ball. So what we do is we'll drop and we'll hold. And we push them back, And that's something that we do to almost every single team we play. Now we do that. And that's fantastic structures and coaching. But what I noticed is around the difference between our right and left. Now, our left-handed side players, Martinelli and Trossard, they're good players. They're good players. And then I look at Isak and I think, well, he's a very good player. So what does he have apart from being our best player? Right? So he has a character and personality and body position to receive the ball and always be available to receive it. When I look at the left-hand side, I feel we don't have the same offensive character and presence. And we're not talking about the ability of the player, because they have different abilities, but I don't think they have the same offensive presence that forces players will always give you the ball. I call it, they give it to you for their win bonus. So who are they giving it for their win bonus? They're giving it to Saka for their win bonus. It's just, you would do that, wouldn't you? You'd feed him, you'd overfeed him. If we had a player on the left-hand side that says, you've got to give it to me because my offensive character and instincts and what I do demand the ball. So either you do that with your movement or you do that with how you want to receive it and your strength to hold people off. And I think we look quite young on our left and I think we look really mature on our right. If we fix that, I think we're going to have an unbelievable season because then we have diversity about how we go, where we go, and we'll feel confident going to somebody because you know we're going to retain it and keep it in a way and things can happen off that side. I think it's sometimes we don't see something for a while. It becomes clear. We all know as Arsenal fans that our right side's better than our left. But why is that? Don't think about the player. Why is it? Think about what they transmit to you. Do they transmit to you, I get it in here and something's going to happen? Or do we hope something's going to happen? And if we feel that, what do you think the players feel? So why do you think they go to the side where they think something's going to happen to? Do you see what I mean? And within 10 minutes of that game, you see Ben White running, you see Ethan taking it in, you see Saka doing his bits. You're thinking, well, our right side's tip top, but we're only 10 minutes into the preseason game. Do you see what I mean? The character and their ability to show what they're doing in such a defined way, you almost have to give them the ball. We need more of that on the left-hand side. I think we're far more youthful and we lack a bit of offensive stature. Did that make sense, Tim? Am I getting the right words? You're better words than me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the two attackers that we have brought in are definitely...
you nailed it, mate.
To solve that a little bit, because Madueke, for better and for worse, I think has that give character. Me the ball type thing. And I'm going to go every single time. I think Gyokeres certainly does that. And I think that's what I was getting at in the last kind of episode where I talked about like players that potentially push or challenge the no dickheads rule.
Absolutely.
If you want a more tortured analogy, it made me think, do you ever have like with your wife or whatever, when someone like from the school or something and it's about your child, they always talk to your wife, right?
Oh, yeah.
They always assume talk to mum, don't talk to dad.
Yeah.
Talk to mum. And that's kind of what Arsenal have got. Like with Saka, it's just like, talk to mum. Mum will sort it out. Mum will know. Mum will know.
Yeah.
Mum will know the name of the teacher and all of that. It's like, it's a little bit like that. But, we'll talk about some of the things you referenced the right side. And I think that was something where it was like, oh yeah, that's, White and Saka, that reminded me of Arteta's quote when he first took over. Do you remember he was talking about like when you're in the kitchen, once you're there for a while, you know where all the cups and all the sauces are and stuff. That's what the right side looked like to me. But I think also to go back to what I was talking about with Adrian Clark's commentary, he was talking about looking for the things that are different. We know Ethan Nwaneri is very close to a new contract.
Yeah.
All of the transfer moves, we bought another winger, which potentially a blocker for him, and all of the reporting was about him having a more central role. And for me, Clive, one of the interesting things about this is Nwaneri starts in field, and to me, that didn't quite look like the Nørgaard role. That didn't look like right 8 to me. That looked 10 to me.
Yeah.
And, that shot he has in the first half, which, by the way, what an unbelievable goal that would have been.
Yeah.
People who haven't seen it, he's got his back to goal. He flips the ball up, turns and volleys it towards the bottom corner, and the goalkeeper saves it. But much more central, much, much more central. And I know Adrian Clark said this on commentary, that kind of Nørgaard and Rice looked almost more like a double pivot behind Nwaneri as a bit more of a 10 and less perhaps of that right 8. What did you make of that? And I guess Nwaneri's performance and the fact that he looks about a foot taller as well.
Yeah, and this is let's talk about all of this. I love this stuff. So yeah, shooting guard versus point guard. That was my analogy. I think Odegaard is our point guard, right? So he gets on the ball, creates the play, blah blah blah. Doesn't matter where he is. I want, Nwaneri is a shooting guard. I can do a little bit of that, but really, I want to get 3 shots a game. Can I get 3 hard shots a game? And I like the difference. So I actually think, you think this through, right? We're going to sign the centre forward, and he's a bit of a sprinter. He runs away, lateral runs in behind. The sort of player that Odegaard would thrive with, right? He likes movers, runners. He can find them with his eyes shut. When maybe Havertz and Ethan is a combination we'll see a little bit more, whereas, Havertz is a bit more of an all-rounder and he'll move, but Ethan isn't, maybe not such a, he can play passes in, but he almost like got 2 strikers there. Do you see what I mean? And I think that will, somebody who's shot heavy, last action heavy, versus someone like Kai is more of an all-rounder. You have Odegaard is much more of a playmaker, last pass in, difficult pass through lines to runners. If you've got a runner centre forward who's a real sprinter that wants the ball in behind, then you can see the combination. So in pre-season,
you're almost getting that 4-2-2-2 kind of shape going. Yeah,
exactly that, mate. Exactly that. And could you imagine? Again, we're just projecting ahead. You got a left-footed winger and a centre forward that crashes the box. You can see things happening there. Early crosses, where the goal come from yesterday. First time cross, early defence not set, on the move out. What happens? Saka picks his pocket on the back post. This is the sort of stuff we want to see, right? A little bit more. You know what? Balls come. I'm going to put it in there. I'm not going to have a touch, because a touch allows your defender to get himself set, feel his forward, I know where he is, and attack the ball. When you put the ball in first time, defense not set, disorganized, Saka picks pockets, goal. Right? So this stuff is I thought was really, really interesting. I never look at performance too much. It's nice to see things that surprise you, and nice to see impact. But Ethan's growing, and that's something that I was actually on Discord talking about this. If you look at some of the pictures of him, you can see that he looks, even a few months ago, he looks quite big-footed. And for those of us who had young teenage boys, we all know what happens. Your feet grow first, then you grow into your body. So for me, this is not a surprise. He just needed not to play. You need your body to rest. As soon as you rest, you have time away from intensive work, your body can settle and grow. And he looks like he's grown. And this really opens up a lot for me in those central areas. And I thought that shot was sensational, mate. That is, friendly or not, the speed of that action would work in any level of game. It was just like one touch around the corner, bang, and it sort of shook you. So I was very worried about him not signing. And Elliot was saying, don't worry, Clive's going to sign. But when you got a player that talented, you know how this works, Tim. Everyone's knocking his door down to get him. He's got 1 year to go. They'd love to steal him from Arsenal. That would be fantastic for him. So I was worried until it got done. So I'm pleased to see him in the new squad now, which basically means he's going to get done, because his talent is off the scale. He's still growing into his personality. Once he grows into that personality, which he will do in central areas, and become comfortable receiving the ball from everybody, wow, we have got a talent on our hands for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing about that shot as well, you're talking about potentially having a striker who runs in behind like Gyokeres. Does that take defenders away?
Yeah,
and make room for because it's something we don't do a lot of, shooting from the edge of the area, that kind of almost that Phil Foden bit, and then it gives defenders a decision to make. It was like watching in the Women's Euros, England versus Italy the other night, and Lucy Ward was on co-coms for ITV. She's brilliant co-commentator. There was a point where England are chasing a goal, and Kira Walsh had a shot from about 25 yards, and Lucy Ward said, "Great, that's great." Because Italy are dropping back, and I think the shot went wide, but she said that's a brilliant thing to do, because now the doubt's in their mind. Are they going to shoot? do I have to go out and engage?
Yeah.
Type thing, and we probably, well, I think we certainly don't do enough of that. We get the ball around the edge of the area. First of all, we don't really avail of those properly central areas anyway. We're always off to like one of the sides, in like the kind of half spaces. But I don't think we've had that kind of, is he going to shoot? Yeah. It's always been like he's gonna pass it out to Saka, isn't he? He's gonna spin it out to Saka, and they're gonna try and cross. So like having Nwaneri a bit more central and availing of some of that shooting power, I think really interesting development both for him and the team, actually, because we've been thinking about how do we get Nwaneri in, how do we do things, but actually what we probably haven't been thinking about is actually how does he help the team? How does he has things that maybe some of our other players don't have that can really make him kind of make him a real tool for the team. Before we go to a break, Clive, we talked a little bit about Nwaneri looking bigger, which at his age,
it's going to happen.
That's going to happen. It reminds me of another analogy here, but I had, when I was about 13, 14, I had a mate called Mark at school. Last day of school, little guy, spoke, a little bit like this, and then didn't see him for 6.5 weeks, came back for next year. He had a beard and he sounded like Barry White.
Happens quickly.
And that's kind of, yeah. So there's Nwaneri and also Clive, Kai Havertz. Yeah. I think we can see maybe what he was doing in the gym, while he perhaps couldn't work on his lower body. And I've spoken to female players before who've said this, who've had like lower leg injuries or whatever, and said, I just work my upper body. I think it's pretty clear Kai Havertz has done that. What do you make of that? Because that can go either way as well. Like when you change your body, what do you make of let's say the physical condition of two of those players? And do you think it says anything about the way we might approach things at all?
It says something to me about elite sport environments. If you do what you always did, it's not going to be enough. You have to evolve and change. I thought Kai Havertz looked amazing as a forward. So before when he came, he was a player that could play a number of positions, even play left back for his country. Remember that early in this stage? And so he had a body that said, I can put you anywhere, basically. Now he's got a body of a centre forward. It's just like that. He's done, right? So that's where he's playing. And you go back
very similar to Ben White, right? Yeah. Ben White, when he went to fullback, suddenly became a lot sleeker.
Yeah,
he changed his body. Yeah,
yeah, and he's got himself back right now. And obviously, there's a bit about transition, which I mentioned earlier, but the secondary thing I would have mentioned would have been shooting. When you see Kai Havertz taking the ball in on the right-hand side slightly and taking a shot from outside the box while the ball's rolling in front of him, a coaching message has been sent to the players. When you got an opportunity to shoot, you take that shot. Right? So we're looking at two things we've seen. Forget the execution. Look at the intent. Turnovers, speed of attack, edge of area shots. Trossard had a banging shot as well, didn't he, in the edge of the area? And this is real intention. We're taking that shot. And I like that. And you want to see, when you turn around, if it goes over the bar, you want to see your coaches clapping, saying, yeah, you've now done what I want to see. Right? And your point is bang on. If people then start to jump out of holes, and you can dummy it and pop it off to other people. But let's have the intention to shoot and hit that target hard. Again, we've got a centre forward coming, doesn't mind a shot. So Kai Havertz thinking, okay, you lot, I read what you've all said about new centre forward. I read there's going to be ticker tape reception when he arrives. I can sit, but I'm a centre forward too, and I'm going to show you what I can do. And that's what we got to do. That's what Odegaard's got to do with Ethan around him and Saka around him, and think, hold on, have you seen Marino? Have you seen what shape he's in? Do you think he couldn't play in Odegaard's position as well? Do you think Saka couldn't play in Odegaard's position as well? If these people don't step up, I know what's going to happen. He's going to have a coat on, and so this is what the level is now. And when I don't know if you sensed it watching it, I felt a determination in the game. There was a determination to get your performance out in the minutes that you had on the pitch. And you better be determined, because there should be nobody comfortable. You're watching Calafiori play his game. He's looking determined, jumping in, really wanting to make an impression. Hey, look, it's the new season, right? But this is when hierarchies are defined right now, and you are now, everyone's looking at you and seeing what you've done, how you've come back, what shape you're in. Are you listening to me? These are what, can I trust you? These are when hierarchies are defined and careers are defined. This is why I always think preseason is fantastic, but not the results per se, but the intention to play and how we're playing. And I thought it was a wonderful exercise. And Kai Havertz, mate, you know I'm a fan of him anyway. We found another player, because this is a new player compared to what we had before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just on the long shots thing as well, actually reflecting on two of the last goals we scored last season, Declan Rice against Newcastle, securing second place basically by pinging one, the edge of the area. Martin Nørgaard, last goal of last season. Actually, he seemed to find his shooting boots with a few games to go, so maybe traced back to there. But what we'll do here is we'll take a quick break. We will let Elliot drop in the ad read, and we'll be back right after that. Okay, we're back with part two, looking at Arsenal's 1-0 win over AC Milan in Singapore on Wednesday, lunchtime in the UK, evening in Singapore, whenever it was where you were. Clive, we talked a little bit in the first. I don't want to go over this too much because I think you kind of nailed it. But as much as we're looking for new things, Saliba eating up ground, coming out of nowhere, jumping off the screen when you couldn't see him, tick. Saka and White looking like they can read each other's thoughts, tick. There was a lot of good stuff that we're probably quite familiar with, maybe even forgot at the end of last season or over the course of the summer. But one area where we are quite new is midfield. It's kind of 2 in, 2 out, and it's interesting that Nørgaard and Zubimendi shared a half each on this. Let's start with Christian Nørgaard then. What did you make? I heard James say on the Arscast, I didn't notice him, and that was good. And that's kind of how I felt. But what did you make of his performance?
I think he's more of a simplistic 6, if you know what I mean by that. A bit more traditional from a UK perspective, like somebody that...
Get the ball, give it.
Get it, give it. There you go. Took the words out of my mouth. Get it, give it. Track, close holes, drop between centre-backs, but not drop between centre-back so I have to have it and have 10 touches. Drop between centre-back because that's where I need to be to put an extra defender here. Do you see what I mean? And then in midfield, I want to patrol, a bit like Coquelin used to, patrol, wait for a dodgy touch and smash that, win it back, intercept, and give it forward immediately. Right? So again, real identity to his game. So once you see him going to a challenge and you're on midfield or one of his partners, you know what you're doing? You're thinking, okay, are there any bits for me here? If there are no bits, can I just separate from my man? Because he's going to give it to me straight away. So I need to be thinking about him winning it and then giving it to me, And then other people need to be thinking about that as well to get close and combine. So I thought his game was really easy to read, really sort of the way I was brought up, basically. When Declan Rice first played in that 6 role, he played like that. Very simple. He's now developed a much more technical game, both feet. He's playing left foot passes and all sorts of things. That's a classic 6 as I grew up, right? So he'll be fine. 6'2", set piece monster. Thank you very much. Where do I stand? Can I save people's legs? Can I start some games? Very, very, very smart signing that. Where none of us would think about, but it makes all the sense in the world. And obviously, I don't know if you want to go into Zubimendi, Tim, but Zubimendi is the somebody that I used to ignore until he came on in Euro final and then told everybody how good he was. But he's not so easy to read. You need to think, what does he actually do? Is he fast enough? Is he big enough? What does he do? And you spend more time watching him, you can see exactly what he does. And he provides the drum beat that we need, but his drum beat seems to be a little bit more on time, and on time to the people around him. I think his default maybe is to, how can I make this team look really, really good? And I think I know what they need and when they need it and how they need it. I really like that. I was looking at how he gets free in the midfield. And sometimes he does this really cute thing, right, Tim, where he runs, say defenders have got the ball, they're looking up for him, and he's sort of in a little bit of space. And what he does, he goes and marks himself almost, stands behind somebody, and they all calm down, thinking, oh, they're not going to give it to him. Then he bounces out of the marking. So he's gone to mark himself, but then he bounces out into space and then receives it. You think, he's in space. He can't really run. Can't they see him? How's he doing it? And it's his cute usage of other people to create space and when to pump off them. Really good. And I when we did the scouting video of him, I just and sometimes I blurt something out sometimes. And I said, he could be Mikel's most important signing. And I thought, what have I just said? But actually, I sort of meant it, because these players define how you play. They really do. And for Mikel to renew this team, he needs to redefine that role in a different way, with different characteristics. And it's the centre point of the wagon wheel. And I do think it's a really important signing. We all know we need a striker, so we know that, right? We need forward depth. We need more forwards that run and can travel and threaten. But this guy is the brain of the team, and it's going to put other people under threat who have been the brain of the team, shall we say. I think it's going to challenge people, And so, again, I think it's great for the evolution of the group. And I thought he was a wonderful start. I'm quite pleased to see him walk around Singapore looking really happy. This is his first move. And I was wondering, would he settle? It seems as though he's settling in the group really nicely.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of Spaniards. That's for sure. And like his mate Mikel Merino as well is there. I thought what was really interesting, I think we probably kind of knew this about both players, but whereas Nørgaard, sat and, search and destroy and all of that, Zubimendi was a bit more all over the map. He went and pressed. And to your point, I think he's much more of a, what does this game need? What does this situation need at the moment? And and I really think what's quite interesting is I think both of them potentially just liberate Declan Rice a little bit. First of all, because we've got two number sixes, so clearly Rice is just not going to play there unless there's an injury crisis. But I think there's, first of all, like a good bet on Rice's athleticism as well, to have like someone like Zubimendi who does go fishing a bit more, and to say, well, he's got Declan Rice next to him. He can go and cover any ground that's lost in behind. Like Partey and Jorginho weren't really ever going to do that, although Jorginho did it once or twice, actually, in certain games. I remember that Liverpool, that was it game we beat Liverpool in the Premier League last season, where Jorginho kind of played as a bit more of an advanced eight and really went fishing. And I wonder if that's actually something that Arteta kind of wants, and maybe we will see that. Maybe we'll see Rice and Zubimendi flip a little bit in game. I just think it get like Partey and Jorginho. I think there's something they do, and you just get them to do that every game. Yeah. Whereas I think there's potentially a little bit more kind of flexibility here.
Isn't it, Tinez? That's what evolution is. You want these players to offer you different things, right? And we don't want to get people to do exactly what we used to do. Otherwise, you're going to get stopped in exactly the same way, right? So, I think I'm genuinely excited about this player, Zubimendi, and I'm not saying it in a way, oh, well, I spotted him, I'm owning him. No. I just like to see players like this play in midfield. One thing that people will realise very, very quickly is how two-footed he is. And I think we're quite one-footed in this space. I think that two-footedness means we can take more opportunities to pass forward, and regardless of how lumpy the ball is or how it's arrived at you, if you've got 2 feet, you can do it on time quickly, and then that encourages forwards to say, okay, he's going to give it to me, I'm going to go. I don't think we spin enough. I don't think we run in behind enough. These are just things that we are talking about, top first world problems, right? That's what we're talking about. But we all want to get better, don't we? And so these things will help us get better.
Yeah, definitely. And I also just think that collection of players, we're talking about Nwaneri maybe being a bit more of a floaty 10, then, you've got a real collection of like men behind him, like Rice, Merino, Zubimendi, Nørgaard, like all of these players will allow someone like him to go, you go and drift up there. We've got this, we've got this kind of part of the pitch on lockdown. And I kind of like that. But A couple of other little bits to get to. We'll talk about the guys that came on that definitely aren't men in a minute,
Not
and
yet.
then quite a couple of years away from that. But I guess just a kind of quick bite, like Calafiori playing at left centre back ahead of Kivior again. It's the first game of pre-season, so there's lots of game sharing. They obviously want. I think they want to sell Zinchenko, and when you want to sell a player, I think you probably, both because AC Milan were apparently one of the teams interested, but also you want to keep them ripe, you want to keep them in the shop window a little bit. But did you read anything into Calafiori playing as a left centre back ahead of Kivior in this game? And I wonder whether that's a role we'll see him in a little bit more this season.
I think Calafiori's got a massive season ahead. I think he's a really talented player, and he got injured a couple of times last year, and it's quite frustrating for Arsenal. Both times he got international duty, he got injured. Not in our games. Right? I think he may have had one slip in a League Cup game, something like that. So, but actually, I really rate him. I really rate his talent. I really rate how things happen around him. When he gets the ball, things just happen. He creates things. And so I'm really looking for him to have a big season. I really want to see him physically push on and develop, much like, I know it's different, but like Ethan has and like Kai has, really develop himself, and like Ben has, just develop himself so he looks more robust on the pitch and maybe a bit more calmer. Because a lot of the times he's been injured is when he's pushed himself to his extremities. Almost trying to make an impression. So I know he's young, but he just needs to chill, relax, because his quality is massive. I would have picked him ahead of Kivior, although Kivior's done nothing wrong. But maybe because I just like his talent. I want to see him, So, and I like that combination of the two of them together. I thought Calafiori was quite aggressive, and Sleeve was just top, right? So, don't see anything more than that than me. Although I hope Kivior stays. I don't want him to go anywhere. The 8 we should
great
have
cross for the goal.
Great cross.
He's got a left peg on him. He really has.
You could say he could potentially be our best passing defender. Well, you could say that, over longer distance, medium long distance. So yeah, I like him, and I think he's really battled through a tough period at Arsenal, being moved around to right centre back and left centre back and left back, and been challenged in different systems, different units, and he's just always risen above it and never says a word. And you can tell that the rest of the squad really like him. So I hope he stays. But if someone was to come along and buy him, you'd also be pleased for him also that he's going to get more of a first team career. Do you see what I mean? And so, but they've got to pay numbers for him now. This isn't like your old rubbish by the bins. So I hope he stays. I like his game. I like what he does. I like his passing. And so, I didn't see anything there beneath that, Tim, to be honest, rather than just sharing game time across the 90.
Yeah, and hopefully we don't have to play Gabriel until his hamstring tears.
Yeah.
And maybe when Gabriel has a tight hamstring next season, we don't keep sending him out until it blows up. But
when he does that big flight from Brazil, we don't have to rush him out straight away afterwards. We can look around and say, actually, we can do something else in this regard. That's when they tend to get injured, isn't it, after big international breaks.
Absolutely, yeah. And I did have something to talk about Arsenal's left side here, because I think there's obviously a big focus on that. I kind of think we covered that in the first half, though. But I guess looking at AC Milan's left side very, very briefly, I know a player you've talked about a lot in Rafa Leão. As soon as he came off the pitch, talking, Arsenal, one of the top 5 teams in the world and all of that. I mean, I kind of think if Arsenal ever did express an interest in him, it might be someone rivaling Victor Gyokeres for their desire to make it happen. He seems to talk very, very nicely about Arsenal, but I guess that kind of comparison point on the pitch at a time where I think as a fan base we're looking around and everyone's left side looks better than ours in our eyes, which is obviously, I think, quite harsh, but when you're a bit jaded about something, maybe you've seen the same players for a couple of years there, everything else looks kind of new and interesting. What did you make of Rafa Leão in this game?
Yeah, so let's just get cards on the table, right? there are 2 left-siders that I like, in Eze and Rafa Leão, right? So, and again, what do they bring? Straight away, when the ball goes into them, your hope index goes up. and you don't think they're going to get knocked off it. You know they can move and travel. They've got real presence. So that little speech I did earlier, I was thinking about these two players basically, and that's the truth. And it's a feeling you get when you watch a football match. You know who you want the ball to go to. You just do. Right? And if they get the ball, they've got the ability and the personality to do what they need to do with it. A real technical ability. I thought, I don't know if he played more of a centre forward, stroke left side, like Thierry Henry, didn't he? More or less, like he used to play central player. They can look after it centrally, but also I'm going to drift to the left. Classic Thierry Henry style game. Eze's more of a left 10 with a point of an arrow. If you see what I mean, that's his best position. But that's just his starting point, and he travels to the left and he travels in. But again, what he does is when he's around the edge of the area, he creates movements with how he manipulates the ball. And again, you feel there could be an outcome. He could do a 1-2 receive clip, 1-2 receive, shoot, near post, far post, set pieces, direct free kicks. Just got a lot coming out of those boots. He's used to the league, mate. That I would just love to see it. I would love to see it. I think that's everything else we needed to do. We really need to do it. And it's great that we're doing it. We're protecting Saka, we're protecting Saliba. We've got a new centre midfield. We've got a centre forward coming. We've got two fine left-sided players, but we were to change one of them and bring in somebody like one of those two, I think people would look up and say, okay, Arsenal mean business now. If you close your eyes and look at Arsenal from 30,000 feet, sometimes the first two players that come into your mind, but three players come to your mind, are two centre-backs and Saka, right? And we are a team that's noted to be one of the best off-the-ball teams in the world. None of us are thinking, well, Arsenal, crikey, their attack is rip-roaring. Now, our numbers say we can score goals as a team, but we're not that team that says their attack is going to kill you. Look at PSG in this year up until the final game. They're wing forwards, they're wingers, they're attackers, how they go forward. That's what they're defined by. And we haven't got that definition yet, but it's coming. And it's going to be so interesting to see us adapt to that as watching fans, because we know what we can do, but can we get a little bit more pizzazz there? And that's the bit that excites me, mate.
Speaking of things that are exciting, Arsenal have taken two 15-year-olds on this tour, and they both come on. I guess we can talk a little bit, I think, more about Max Dowman. I didn't know as much about Salmon until I saw his name on the list, but clearly someone they rate very, very highly to bring on tour. And it's not like we have a massive shortage of defenders or anything. There's clearly a point there in bringing him and then putting him on. And then there's the performance of Max Dowman, which I'll ask you about in a second. But I think overall, Clive, for Hale End, what a golden age this is. Saka's wearing the captain's armband. Last season he was like uncle to Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri. Now he's like, what is he, granddad? With like
Lewis Skelly's now uncle.
Yeah, exactly. Lewis Skelly and Nwaneri are now uncle. We've got like Max Dowman coming through. I can't remember a time where our academy was producing like a lineage like that of like a generational player in Saka. Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly have got all the materials and are well on their way. And then you've got like someone like Max Dowman, like, we could, and obviously like you don't want to put too much pressure on the players and all of that, and particularly Max Dowman, but like it's just not inconceivable that all of these players are going to be in the team and pivotal starting 11 players like in the next few years. Like I guess first of all, like the kind of the message behind bringing those 15-year-olds, bringing them both on as well. And I guess like, because like at centre-back, a bit like Kepa, like AC Milan did nothing, basically, particularly in the second half. I could have been playing centre-back and it would have been all right, I think. So, but particularly Max Dowman, I think that's the one that people are really excited about.
Yeah, I was on a little list and we talk about football and I sort of said, what's going to happen? What are we going to moan about if we get Gyokeres and we get Eze, we get all our signings, we sell all the players that we all want to sell at a good rate, what are we going to moan about? And the reply come back said, don't worry about it. The next moan will be, why is it Arteta playing Max Dowman immediately in the first team? And I thought, touche, you done me there. I thought it was really, really good. Hey, look, as soon as Arteta started talking about him, I felt that we can, because you need to be respectful for somebody that's 14, 15. I mean, he's 15 and a half. He's going back to school next year, So, and so he's already been away with Dubai with us, etc., etc. I did go and watch him last pre-season, Tim, and I kept it under my hat because I thought he's just 14. What have I just seen? And I came up with a nickname for him, Roger Federer, right? Because when you watch Roger Federer play tennis, you realise that it's just completely natural and he was born to do it. And that's how I felt when I watched Max Dowman play. I might have called myself a footballer when I was young, but I never was one when I watched him play. It was completely natural at 14. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. The balance is the thing that really stood out to me. The flow, the balance, how he travels. He doesn't look like he's full of muscles, yet he's still the fastest player. He can get to the ball quicker. His brain is 3 steps ahead, so he's playing in the future. And I looked and went, oh my goodness, what have we got here? What have we got here? I've not seen it before, and so now it becomes how he develops, the timeliness of that development. He's completely at home on the football pitch with the ball at his feet, and there's nothing to teach him, really. It's all about him learning the level and playing the level. And one of the most naturally talented footballers that I've seen, I said to Elliot, watch out for him. I haven't spoken to him about it. What do you see? What do you feel? So, yeah, let's just hope he is what everyone thinks he is. He basically is the best 15-year-old footballer in the world. So that's the level we're talking about. That sort of thing does not happen very often, around your academy. So, yeah, let's just hope he is what he is, right? And it continues. It seems like Arsenal got him wrapped up with Declan and his mentor, and they got him nicely wrapped up. It all feels so good that I almost don't want to talk about it anymore because he's that good, So, but we have to be patient, right? So please, let's not be killing the manager for not playing him by the end of the season. I'm sure they know what they're doing. Ethan was kept out of the team for a little while last year, and now you see his growth. You realise that maybe there was a method to the madness there. Maybe they knew something we didn't know, and that was the time to protect his body. So we have to trust the experts, but it's hard not to get excited, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in the summer where we've got the Women's Euros going on at the moment, and there's another Hale End Arsenal striker really making an impact on the international stage as well. Like, what a kind of a glory age for Hale End. And it's difficult because I don't really know what Per Mertesacker done. It's a bit like a director of football, so I can't.
Yeah.
But that's potentially some credit to him. Let's talk about. So Arsenal got Newcastle on Sunday. I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about playing Newcastle then Spurs in pre-season. I know how all this works, obviously, but those are the 2 last teams I think I'd choose from the Premier League.
That's a double shin pad day, isn't it?
yeah, very much so. Past that and parking the Isak thing and all of that, what are you looking forward to? What are you looking for the game on Sunday?
Yeah, it's probably more of the same, and see what they take out of the Wednesday game, and see if they want to change the units around a little bit. So obviously you get some that do 45, some that do 60. So are they going to up the minutes of some, or just keep it similar? And then for the all of Asia to make sure that the travelling group gets some minutes. But when they get back to the Emirates now, then that's going to be 60-30s, for everybody sort of thing. They're getting closer to their team for the 2 Emirates games. That's what I would try to do, because the start of the season is really tough and we need to be tip-top. We need to know who is in shape. So we may have to do things. You know what? Ben White's in better shape than Timber. He's fresh off an operation. For the first phase of that game to the international break, Ben, you're the man. You're the man. You're first up. You're going to get first crack at it, right? So that's the decision we can make. If Timber gets back in and plays brilliant and gets for the Spurs game, we've got a problem that none of us are too bothered about. Do you see what I mean? And that's a good place to be. That's a much better place to be. And so it'd be interesting to see. I think we got to attack those first 3 games. I think it's very important, that we attack those games before that international break and really get our foot into the league. So we're going to have to go places and win. That means everyone needs to be tipped. So I think he'll be looking at the condition of the players he's going to rely on and really say, right, let's bed you in because we need to start fast. And that's where my head is, So at the Emirates games, Tim, I'm going to be looking at that. I'm going to be looking at who is in shape to start this league. Forget their names. Who's in shape to start the league? Who is ready to go to really make an impact? Because none of us are going to accept 3 losses in our first 3 games, right? We're going to be up. We'll be all over TalkSport and we'll be broken cannons everywhere, right? So, because they're waiting, aren't they? Particularly if we spend money, everyone's waiting. We have to win. If we don't win, if you even draw a game, it's going to be trouble. So we need to have people with the character to go and deliver in those first 3 games. That's what I'm looking at. Definitely looking at that in the next couple of games. Who's in shape?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's also a context there that 3 of our signings probably won't play. Again, Gyokeres probably won't be there in time. Madueke certainly won't. Yeah. Whether Mascara is on board on time, maybe not. But this is, with the exception of that kind of Zubimendi Nørgaard bit, it's kind of last season's team still. And I think it's actually a reminder we are a good team. We really have the bones and the framework of a good team, and we don't need a lot. And I think it's that I felt like this game was kind of a nice reminder of that as well. But I also think Newcastle are probably quite a bit better than AC Milan were. So we'll see. But they're obviously in a little bit of disarray as well. Turns out winning the Carabao Cup doesn't keep your best players.
That's the Celtic 4-0. I mean, I'm not going to dismiss Scottish football, but that's a bit of a doing, isn't it? Sometimes it happens in pre-season, but that's not a great message, is it? So fair play.
Yeah. It feels like that. They've got some stuff going on there, and perhaps they haven't kicked on because their owners have got. Their owners are busy not just with other teams, with entire sports like boxing and golf. And like PSR restrictions mean they can't really do what Man City and Chelsea did, I don't think. So very interesting there, I think, at Newcastle. But to hell with those guys. Anyway, Clive, that was a really interesting chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And just a little reminder over on the Patreon side, we've still got our kind of transfer dailies, which is usually Elliot talking for about 20 minutes about transfers, but sometimes with a sprinkling of extra guests, and Clive's done one of those as well. On Wednesday, we released another history episode, the 13th in the series, and that's me talking about something from Arsenal's history for a few minutes. But in this episode, I talked about George Eastham, who played for Arsenal in the 1960s and revolutionised transfers in Britain by challenging the transfer and retain system. So I talk about George Eastham a little bit, and Clive and I are going to record a One Club episode on Friday, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Women's Euros, probably a bit about Michelle Agimang, who's exploded onto the scene as England's saviour. And I think we're going to talk as well a little bit about racial representation or lack of racial representation in women's football, and actually some of these themes kind of tie together a bit. And there's been, an England player, Jess Carter, saying that she's going to have to quit social media because of racist abuse and things like that. So Clive will pull at some of these threads around the women's games and have a little bit of a chat about the Women's Euros as well, with England in the final against Spain on Sunday. So if any of that interests you and you're not a patron already, then we'd love to have you. We pump out so much bloody content, I can't keep up. I don't know how anyone else does. But we'd love to have you. If not, these 2 kind of episodes a week will always be here for you, and it's a real pleasure to do them. And we will speak to you after Arsenal 10, Newcastle 0.